Nobody's
No.
going to do it. And there's never been a study on a bunch of guys that are 6'6" and above. The gym ain't built for guys like that.
Yep.
The gym ain't. These studies aren't on people that have had obscenely high physical workload since they were 12 years old.
You're listening to the PJF Podcast, a show dedicated to decoding elite sports performance and fitness. I'm Paul Fabritz, and I'm an MBA strength and conditioning and performance trainer. If you want to become superhuman, take your fitness, and take your sports performance to the next level, this is the podcast for you. Let's do it.
We got a special guest today. We got my man Ben Bruno in the building. Thank you for coming through, my man.
Yo, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Let's dive into your story. You got a really interesting story. I think I read an article a long time ago about how you originally first started as a trainer. Take us all the way back to that point.
I'll try to keep a long story pretty short. To start off, I used to be a guy that played every sport growing up but never trained. So I was like every coach's like probably least favorite guy in that way. And I try to tell the young athletes now, I'm 36. Our whole field is pretty new. Like when I was in high school, almost nobody did training for sports. How old are you?
32.
Did you train in high school?
No.
It was pretty.
There was one trainer in my entire city, and I did like 2 sessions with him, but it was $20 an hour. And I'm like, I can't keep doing this. It's too much for me. Yeah, it was brand new.
I played every sport under the sun. I started my first, I guess you could call it training. I was a ski racer, and we did dryland training. And so what we did was honestly pretty good in hindsight, but we didn't know what we were doing. But we used to do this. We only did 3 things. There was this one drill where we would go up on a staircase and see who could jump the most stairs.
Nice.
And just like as many times as we could. And then we would do wall sits to basically failure. Like it would be like 10, 15-minute wall sits. And then we jumped on the trampoline. And that was like the extent of my training. And then I also used to do a ton of pull-ups. I had a pull-up bar over my closet, and I called it pay the toll. Every time I got something out of the closet, I had to do 1 set of pull-ups.
Nice.
And, side note, but to this day, legs and pull-ups are my best things in the gym. Like there's something to that.
Yep.
But that was the only training I did. I played a bunch of sports, then got to college, and I had a bad back. I've always had a bad back, but it culminated in having a back surgery when I was 19. And the surgery did nerve damage. Are we allowed? I was just going to swear. Sorry.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
for sure,
good.
All good.
But yeah, so I hurt my back when I was 19. Did the surgery. Thought it was going to be like a 2-week rehab. At this time too, it's funny in hindsight. I don't know if you're like this. When I look at some of the stuff I did, I'm like, why was I so stupid? But I just didn't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So I at the time I just went to the doctor that my school doctor referred me to. They told me, I'll never forget, the surgeon told me, in 2 weeks, you'll be back playing golf with me. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I wasn't really too worried about the surgery. Got the surgery. My right leg just like was completely, I had no feeling in my leg. It did nerve damage, and my whole right leg atrophied. And long story short, I had to take a 2-year medical leave from school. My right leg just like shut down, and it was nerve pain, which is like, if you've had nerve pain, it's not always pain. It's just like, it's kind of worse than pain because it like tingles and like it's weird. It's different all the time. But couldn't drive. And I lost 40 pounds, which I'm not a big guy to begin with. So I lost a bunch of weight and was at like real low point in my life. I got super depressed because I was always just used to being active, athletic, and couldn't really do much. And when I lost all this weight, I just felt like, I felt like a shell of myself. And 2 years in hindsight really isn't that long. Like when you look at like 36 years of life, 2 years isn't that long, but 2 years when you're in pain every day is a really long time.
Yep.
And so I got super depressed and got to a real kind of dark place in life where like I just was about as low as you can really feel, and tried, different stuff to feel better. It didn't seem like anything was working. And I was in this physical therapy program that was, the rehab protocol for back surgery is like what they give old people. So I was athletic and I could do everything they were telling me to do really easily just because I had played sports, but I was not improving at all. And with my pain. So I eventually went to this one guy I thought that he was probably going to be like the savior because he worked with the Celtics. Anytime someone worked with a pro athlete, I'm like, this guy probably knows what's up.
Right.
But it was a guy named Dr. Rainville, and I always want to get in touch with him because he changed my life without knowing it. But he referred me to this program called Back Boot Camp, and he was kind of on the cutting edge of rehab, where he thought that a big part of overcoming chronic pain was basically getting out of that patient mentality and learning to just live and just kind of live with your pain. And, you know, he thought that like when you're, which I now believe, when your mindset shifts out of that patient mentality, you just kind of feel better.
Yep.
And so this back boot camp thing was basically akin to low grade weightlifting. So we would do leg press, we would deadlift milk crates, and they would actually teach us to do it with a round back to strengthen our back. And we would do lat pull downs and a bunch of sit-ups and just, you know, just low grade weight training. And I got into this, and I've always been the type of person that if I do something, I'm all in. So I just went in on this program, and I made it a goal to, you know, max out the leg press and max out the lat pull downs. And I was deadlifting, you know, whatever, these milk crates and stuff. And a lot of it flew in the face of traditional PT stuff, physical therapy, but I started feeling better. And then I basically took this low grade back boot camp weightlifting thing and became a meathead, like along the line. I got full into lifting. I'll never forget my last meeting with Dr. Rainville. My mom drove me, and I loved his mentality. He was kind of like, dude, you're fine now. Like, you know, just live your life. You don't have to be too worried. Just don't do anything crazy, like go like deadlift 500 pounds. But besides that, you're fine. So I left, and I told my mom, new goal is deadlifting 500 pounds. That was my, you know, so that was my whole thing. I actually, you know, it's stupid, but I went on this thing, just on this deadlift tear. Like, I got to get to 500 because he told me I probably couldn't, that type of thing.
Right.
But I just went in on training. And at the same time, then when I went back to school, I was interning in finance. And probably like most college kids, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was like, until I figure it out, I'll just try to pick a job that makes money. But I hated this internship. And so kind of circuitously, long story short, I parlayed this finance internship into a training gig because the dude that I was interning for had two sons that played high school and college football, and he connected me with their trainer. And the guy hired me just off this guy's recommendation. So I actually had no training background. I just was interested in training. And at that time, I could tell that I was going down the wrong path with finance because I hated it before I was even ever hired. I hated it as an intern, and it never got better. It just kept getting worse. And then I was the type of guy that in school, I used to have my laptop open, but I'd just be reading like Elite FTS and T-Nation and stuff like that. And, you know,
that was like all we had back then.
Yeah, that's what we did. And I would read Joe DeFranco's Ask Joe blog, and I would read Mike Boyle and Fern Gambetta and Eric Cressy and stuff. And I realized, like, this is all I like. I don't really like I don't like any of my classes. I don't like any of this internship. I just like training. So I told the guy I was interning for, he connected me with this trainer. I thought that I was going to have this job. So, but then another long story short, the guy pulled the rug out from under me right before I started the job, because this was also, this was 2010, right when the economy tanked. And so he couldn't hire me. And so I moved back in with my mom and was like depressed again, going, maybe this training thing isn't, you know, a viable career. Because at the time, not a lot of trainers really like do that well. So I think when you tell your mom or when you tell someone, hey, I'm going to be a trainer, their thought in their head is probably like, oh, my kid's fucking up right now. He's making
That's what happened to me. Everybody's like, where did we go wrong?
Yeah.
Like, you can't become a trainer full time. That's something you do on the side.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of, honestly, I wasn't fully confident that I could swing it into a job in the beginning, but I took a chance because also at the time, life is like so much just right place, right time, timing and stuff. Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers is my favorite book, but at the time, one of my best friends from college had just got laid off his finance job before he ever even started. So I was like, if there's ever a time to just give this training thing the old college try. It's now, because all my friends in finance are getting fucked anyway. So like, I'll give it the try. So I just did that. And when this first job got pulled out from under me before I ever even started, I was like, oh, maybe they're all right. Maybe this training thing is a pipe dream. So I started just applying to just random jobs again. I was a sociology major, which is like kind of a bullshitty major, to be honest. Unless you're going to be a sociology professor, anything you do is going to be unrelated to sociology. But I started doing these, applying for these jobs in market research. I applied to this hedge fund, just random stuff. And while I was doing that, I was reading a T-Nation article written by Mike Boyle and clicked through his bio and found out that the gym was 45 minutes from my mom's house. So I just drove down there with a resume wearing like a golf polo shirt. I didn't know how you're supposed to like dress to a trainer interview.
Yeah.
And just walked in.
I still don't know how to dress to a trainer interview.
Well, now I think dressing up would actually be a demerit. I think you got to wear gym clothes.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, I think gym clothes is the play. But at the time,
the way I dress up is like my gym clothes, but a shirt tucked in, but still in the gym clothes.
I don't know if you're like me, but I live in sweats. But
Yeah,
I have like workout sweats, and then like what I consider like dressy sweats that I can wear out. They're just like probably the next size down.
Dress sweats.
Yeah, like I have the bigger size, and then like the smaller size, which like to me looks dressy, but it probably doesn't. Same with t-shirts. I have like one size and like the smaller size, whatever. If I haven't been lifting, I wear the smaller size.
There you go.
That type of thing. But so that anyway, I walked into Boyle's and just was very honest. I said, I have no ostensible qualifications to be here, but I really like training. I've read everything you've ever written. I definitely know more than my credentials indicate, but you know, until you see that, I'll just like mop the floors or whatever. And he was like, can you start tomorrow?
Nice.
And so I just got an internship, interned there for like 5 months, and then worked there for 4.5 years. And that was the best thing I ever did. I think a lot of trainers, if you're not familiar with Mike Boyle strength and conditioning, first off, Mike is a legend, I think. Well, you know, kind of really, really bright guy, and then also just a nice guy. But the gym at Boyle's is one of the best environments for a young trainer because they have more people come through. In a summer day, they could have 400 people come through the door.
Wow.
So I've always thought working there is like learning a language abroad, in the sense, you know, you could like, I took Spanish in school for 7-8 years, but I never paid attention, cheated on all my homework, you know, just did, you know, memorized stuff with no intent to learn it and barely knew any Spanish. Then I went to Spain the summer between high school and college and was just there for 7 weeks and learned Spanish.
Yeah.
You know,
you just got to immerse yourself in the culture.
But that's sort of training. You know, I had read everything under the sun. And then when you actually meet your first client, you're like, oh, most of this shit actually doesn't apply when I'm working with a real person. It's all like, but the best way to get good at training is to train. And so they truly do have maybe 400 people come through in the summer. So by the 1 year into training, I had trained pro athletes. I trained 9-year-olds. I trained a blind guy. I trained a guy with one leg. I trained really overweight adults. I trained almost every different kind of sport. And so there's really no substitute for that. I'm so glad that I think a lot of trainers now, I sound like bitter when I say this type of stuff, but I do think that a lot of people's mentalities have changed where they just want to like make money right away, train pro athletes right away, and do all this stuff. But I think that none of that matters if you're not a good trainer.
Yeah, most of them actually skip those steps as well. They just go to like online training. It's like start an Instagram. It's like you haven't really trained anybody. It's kind of detrimental to like give out advice online if you haven't trained like hundreds of clients already.
Oh, for sure. And that's so my first 4 years was spent just doing that and working in a high volume training facility. I had a very broad clientele, and that really helped me. And then also, you know, I was so lucky because we used to do staff meetings every Tuesday, and it would either be Mike talking or he would have guest lectures, and it was like Dan John, Kelly Starrett, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just got to learn from all these really great people and then put it into practice, because there's also probably 30 to 40 coaches between there's two gyms. that are all just people like us that just eat and breathe training. So it was a great place to be. And then while I was there, I kept this blog. I'm like the least tech savvy person you probably ever met, but it was called Ben's Blog on benbruno.blogspot.com. This like free site.
I think I was a subscriber.
Oh, really?
Early on.
Yeah. So I just used to, and I had this YouTube page, and God, I missed that blog. It was fun. I just would share what I was doing. And I think what served me in the long run, I think a lot of people are short-sighted when they try to think about their career, but I've always thought, when I look at a 23-year-old kid that has this like crazy bio, I'm like, dude, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way.
Yeah.
And when my first blog post was like basically telling the story I just told you and saying, I'm going to share what I learned in my internship. I said I was an intern, you know, and I was just very honest with what I was doing. And you kind of get a community through that, because there's a lot of people. You realize if you're just honest and you say, hey, I'm just trying to learn this thing, there's a lot of people that are trying to learn too. Mm-hmm. So we just sort of like learn together. Yeah. And I would share, you know, when I shared an exercise, I would never say like, this is the greatest exercise ever. I would say, hey, I was screwing around in the gym today and this feels pretty cool. Try it and let me know if you think it's cool too. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's all I would do. That was
I remember there's a lot of creative stuff, just like different ways to use a landmine and all kinds of different creative stuff.
But
that's
I was
what
never
drew
trying
me to it.
I was never trying to act like an expert. I was always just saying like, hey, we're kind of in this together.
Yep.
And the world was different then. Like there wasn't social media like it is now. It was only Facebook. And
it was so much less toxic.
Oh, it was the best because, you know, all my comments were 100% positive.
Yeah.
It was either people being nice to me or they kept their mouth shut. Now it's like, bro, I started a TikTok like maybe
TikTok's
6 months ago.
So toxic.
And I don't even know how to post the TikToks. But my friend Sam posts my TikToks, which is just the same stuff that's from Instagram. If I ever need to like get humble, I just go on TikTok. It's all 100% negative. Yeah. It's all these kids that don't train anyone just tell me how dumb I am.
Yep.
And how everyone I train has bad form and I'm stupid and I'm man, what a different world.
All the time.
I used to love it. Now I just like I don't.
It's so bad. Yeah, I had this old blog and it wasn't very good, but I basically did like must reads. Yeah. So it was like the other blogs that I like. I just posted those like every Wednesday. But yeah, everything was so positive. And the other cool thing is like we keep moving towards shorter and shorter content. Back then, it was like a long blog post. You have plenty of room to cite your sources and give context. And then it moved to like YouTube. And then it was like, okay, you got to condense a little bit. And then Instagram, you got to condense more. Now TikTok, you got to condense more.
I hate it.
So now people are just like stealing stuff and they don't even have enough room in their captions to credit like where they got it from or what research they're citing.
My blog post used to be 1,500 words, a blog post. I would talk about everything and explain it. And I like that. I like the longer videos. You know, when I try to cut down my videos now to make it like a minute, for example, and I'm told my videos are too long.
Yeah.
But I'm, you know, if I show a guy's set, I want to show all the reps. I'm like, he like worked hard for those 10 reps. I want to show that he just did 10 reps. I don't want to make it seem like he maxed out and did 2 reps, that type of thing. You know, like it's just the short attention span thing is tricky for me because, you know, when I watch people's videos, I actually... Like, say you posted a video and your athletes were doing 3 reps of everything just because you wanted to make it short and get the views. I don't actually like that as someone who's trying to learn because I like to know, like, how many reps does Paul have the guys do? Like, what do they actually do? Like, I like seeing the full sets because that's how I learn. When you just see clips of everything, I'm like, does everyone just do 1 rep of everything? Like, I like when I watch trainers, because I actually do learn quite a bit through social media. I would actually say now, it's probably my single biggest driver of my new knowledge is social media, but there's also the dumbest shit imaginable. So I just have to have a good filter. Yeah. But I do learn from people, but it's hard to learn when they have to condense their stuff because I can't really see what they're doing. Mm-hmm. You know, I love, like I just said, I love knowing the full workout, not just like a clip, or I love knowing like how many reps they did of certain exercises because sometimes I look at what someone else is doing that I respect, and I'm like, they're doing it better than we are. I should do it that way. Yeah. But, you know. What
you're describing is something that's happening in all industries where algorithms are killing true art. Yeah. And it's like, so my best post, if I'm going deep with some science, no views. Crickets. Nothing. If I just put in 3 reps of some little thing, like it goes crazy, 1,000,000 views. So it's like this hard game where I still do the stuff that I know is not going to get any views anyways, because I know there's people like you who would appreciate it. But at the same time, you got to play that game where it's like, I still got to grow and I still want to get eyes on my stuff. So it's like this balance, but yeah, the algorithm just shuts it down if it's not exactly what it wants.
Well, it's hard too, because it's always very important to me to be respected by my trainer peers.
Yeah.
And so I like to put out content with that in mind, but that's just straight crickets these days. So it's like nobody cares.
Yeah.
Except like my 10 trainer friends, it seems like. And so it's always a struggle because I find that my most popular exercise posts are stuff I'm not even proud of.
Yeah.
Right. Like 2 weeks ago, I put a little clip of this dumb exercise I was doing on my Instagram story. And then when I came back to my phone, probably 5 or 6 hours later, I had seemed like 100 people replying to me about this story, fire. My caption was clearly, I wouldn't even do this with clients. I was just screwing around. And I'm like, how is like the most popular exercise I've ever shared, the one that I literally said, don't do this. I was just screwing around.
Yeah.
But if I just, it's, and I thought, this is like everything that's wrong with social media. This is just a dumb thing. I was just screwing around and having fun. And that is what people want to take away from the stuff. But meanwhile, I recently shared a video of Kelly Oubre training, doing great stuff, really just good, simple stuff. But I think the basics done well with good technique cures about 80% of what people need to work on.
Yep.
And the video is straight crickets because it was just rear foot elevated split squat, one arm dumbbell press, just too boring to be cool. But I'm like, that's, as a trainer, when I see people do just the real basic stuff with a heavy weight and good form, I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But to people now, it's not. It's got to be like, it's almost like the dumber the exercise, the better you're going to do it.
For sure. And it's also the guarantee you put behind the exercise. The stuff that shows up on my Explore page is like, this is the best exercise ever for your feet. It's like, probably not. But because you put that guarantee, it got people to be like, okay, this is the one that I got to do.
Dude, I always, they have that show, The Biggest Loser, but I sometimes joke that the online fitness world right now is like the Biggest Loser contest. Like, it's just, if you're winning at social media, you're probably like not doing great training.
Yeah, right. 100%. Yeah, we're one of the few fields that's like regressing. Like, you're supposed to progress and we're just not. Like, I feel like back with the blogs and the long form content, that's when we were kind of peaking. And then ever since then, social media, it's just been, we're being pulled in the wrong direction, I think.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky.
It's pros and cons because now I can reach more people. Like my little blog, like nobody was even viewing it. I don't know if that would have ever blown up, but then social media, you get more eyes. And I look at it this way, like I could put out, some sort of drill and it's going to get me 1,000 followers. And then, maybe 100 of them are going to stick for my next post when I actually talk about the science and stuff. And so you're kind of just pulling them in and then feeding them the good stuff. But let's pick back up with your story. You were at Boyles, you're there for 4 years. What makes you make that jump?
Well, so I was there at the time I was doing my blog and writing my T-Nation articles. And one day I got an email from a guy that had a training studio in West Hollywood saying, hey, we've read your stuff. That's the whole thing. You never know who's paying attention.
Yeah.
So I got offered a job at this training studio in West Hollywood, and the plan was, they trained a bunch of actors. The plan was that I would work there and build up the athlete side because they didn't have athletes. So I moved out here. I was 27. LA seemed cool. And the job didn't work out, wasn't my thing. But then so I was there just a couple months, and then just kind of stayed in LA and said I was going to stay till my lease expired on my apartment, and then got some clients and got some more clients, and then I just stayed here. And so now I just but that's
how did you get into, like, how did you break through to get like that first celebrity client or athlete or whatever?
Well, first athlete was actually through Facebook, and the way that happened was through, I also used to do I used to present for Perform Better at those trainer seminars and stuff. So the strength coach for the Chicago Bulls had followed my blog, like how I guess you said you did. So he sent me Taj Gibson. when I had put on my blog that I was out here. And, you know, people always say it just takes that first person. For me, that was Taj. And I had shared a couple clips of his training. And then the Warrior strength coach saw the clips of Taj and was like, oh, I like what you're doing with Taj, and sent me Iggy. And, you know, better to be lucky than good. It was right when Iggy had won finals as MVP and stuff. And he told Clay, and I got, you know, I had a whole group of guys. My buddy, my best friend, was friends with David Lee, and I just trained with David through him. My buddy.
So just all word of mouth.
Just kind of, so the basketball thing just grew actually pretty quick. I went from one guy to 5 guys in one season, which that doesn't sound like a lot, but, you know, like if you train 5 NBA guys in an off season, that's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
And so I went from 1 to 5, and then now it just kind of grows slow. Like I have my same couple people that come back every year, and then I have a couple new ones here and there, and some don't come back to LA, and so it just grew slow. And then
how do you get the first celebrities?
The celebrity thing, my first celebrity that I got on my own was Chelsea Handler, and that was my friend named Peter Park. He's another really great trainer. He's based in Santa Barbara, but he used to drive down to LA 3 times a week, and he trained Chelsea Handler's manager. And the guy had said, hey, do you know, I actually think he said like something, do you know anybody that's like good with difficult people? And he was like, oh, my buddy Ben's a shit talker. But anyway, I started training Chelsea. This is like 8-9 years ago. And I started with Chelsea, and then same kind of thing. Once you have a couple people like that, I've been very fortunate that a couple of my clients have stuck their necks out for me and recommended people, which that's pretty rare. You know, it's rare for anyone to do that, but I've been lucky to have a couple do that.
Yeah,
and,
that's a sign. That's always a good sign that you're doing a good job, is when they'll go out of their way to help you.
Yeah, because, you know, like even, for example, a lot of celebrities, they'll post their workout, but they won't tag the trainer.
Yeah.
I was very lucky in the beginning. Chelsea's a really, really good person in that way, and that, like, rather than just saying like, hey, I'm working out today, she'll say, hey, I'm working out with at Ben, you know, that type of thing, and that helped me.
It might be different for celebrities, but I know with athletes sometimes they don't want other people to train with you. They're like, I'm training here and this is my advantage. Like, I'm not trying to have everybody else train here.
It's that, and it's there's a lot of stuff like that with my clients, but I've been very fortunate to just and a lot of it is random. Like, you know, I met you know, when I started training Kate Upton, I had met her at lunch with my friend, and it actually was going to be that I was going to train her then boyfriend, now husband, because I trained athletes, and then it didn't work out for me to train him, but I trained her. It's all just like random stuff.
Yeah.
People think it's there's probably a lot more to getting clients, but I think most of it is right place, right time, and just mainly doing a good job with your current clients.
And then just being down to earth and being a good person, so they want to help you.
Yeah.
Because if it's just about the training, like, that's where it stops, and they're not going to go out on their own and refer.
Well, for general population training, I would actually say, I think we could always argue, because training's part art, part science. And then I think when it comes to long-term clients, because here another thing I think trainers miss the boat on sometimes is always focusing on client acquisition and not enough on client retention.
Yeah.
I don't really get a whole lot of new clients, but most of my clients, I've been in LA 9 years now. Most I've had 7 or more years. So if you don't lose clients, you don't really have to get too many.
Yeah. Pick up one new client a year here and there.
Here and there, somebody moves, somebody switches training or gets sick of strength training and moves to Pilates or something. But for the most part, it's been the same people. And I think that comes from creating relationships. But it's really interesting, because if I polled every one of my clients, what percentage of what matters most to you, personality or like the X's and O's of training, they'd all have different percentages. But I would guess when it comes to my long-term general population clients, it's pretty close to 100% personality.
For sure.
Because I can tell you, I've had I've had clients, for example, and still do, where their previous trainer was Tracy Anderson to me. and they like both of us. And we couldn't be more polar opposite when it comes to our training philosophy and the way that training works. And they like both of us. So that's pretty telling to me. Because I learn way more from my clients about how to train people than I do from like trainers in seminars talking about how to train people, because a lot of that is just theory.
Yep.
But I have had women that their previous trainer was Tracy Anderson, and they really like both of us.
Yeah.
So that goes to show that the workout's very secondary to just, is it a fun experience? You know?
100%. That's awesome. Is there a big like difference in mentality between like when you're training your athletes versus when you're training your celebrities, actors, whatever? Is it like different energy that you got to bring, or are you just the same person regardless of who's there?
I don't have it in me, dude. This is as animated as I can ever get. I'm like probably in the gym. I'm probably even less animated than this. I've never been a rah-rah guy.
Me neither.
But I think that I get the most animated I ever get is talking shop. That's why it's fun to do this type of stuff. But you know, I think for clients that wanted that rah-rah high energy motivator, like, it's probably not me. But I actually, when I was at Boyles, there was a part of me that thought that I wanted to do college sports. So I interned with Holy Cross football with Jeff Oliver, who I still think is one of the greatest strength coaches I've ever met. Super smart guy, and even nicer than he is smart, the best guy. But I really realized doing the team thing, this ain't for me. You know, I'm not I would be I'm the world's worst group fitness instructor. If I got a job at SoulCycle, I'd get fired in a day. I just don't have that type of personality. But I think you just got to roll with who you are. You know, I think people can sniff out if you're being fake. You know, if I started being like, come on, you can do 5 more reps, people would know that ain't me. You know, and you know, that's like, if my buddies come to work out with me and they're like yelling at me, I'm like, dude, just say no. Like, that doesn't fly here.
That never motivated me.
Yeah,
I never understood that.
I hate it.
And it's actually really bad feedback, like the good job. Like, what if they're doing a bad job and you keep yelling good job? That happens all the time. And people get like the wrong feedback. It's like, you know, good coaches can be quiet when they need to. But yeah, I went down the same path. I started as a group instructor, and I had to walk around, walking the floor, like yelling at people. And it just was not me. I needed like 4 cups of coffee before every session to get myself ramped up. But yeah, it was never me. And my guys have never needed that. It's almost like if you care enough and you're there, that's motivation for them. They're like, Ben cares that I do more reps today, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I think I motivate people, but in a different way. I'm not, you know, and I definitely do things. There's a lot of psychology to being a trainer, too. I definitely, with athletes, I play them all against each other to get them to get stronger, get them to go harder on their conditioning and stuff like that. I let them know what the guy before him did, and I might even exaggerate what the guy before him did to get him to do a little bit more. I do all that kind of stuff. I'm very... I have a joke with my clients that I'm very honest about lying all the time, but I always lie to them. If I'm timing them on something, I'll you know, shimmy the time, or I'll lie to them about how much weight's on the bar all the time. I do all that type of stuff, or I'll tell them what the person before them did to try to get them to lift more, but I'll pump up what the guy did, you know, all that type of stuff.
There's so much psychology to lifting. Like, if you tell somebody to do 5 pull-ups, they'll literally come to failure at 5. Yeah. And if you're like, we'll do 12, then they'll come to failure at 12. Dude, it's crazy.
Particularly with really gifted athletes. It's really crazy. I've had guys, you know, I just, it always blows my mind with these really high-level pro athletes, just how talented they are. Because every summer... I've spent the last 15, 20 years lifting really hard. And, you know, every summer they all break all my records in just like 2 months of lifting. And I'm like, fuck you guys. Like, how do you even do that? But they're just so talented. You know, and you can get a guy that hasn't pushed himself before that, you know, maybe is just always deadlifted 185. And in a day, they can go from 185 to 350. Just in a day. Just if they are lifting with someone that can lift 350, they're like, all right, I'll do that too. You know, whereas me, like, I know my maxes are my maxes. You know, that's like, I can't even hit my maxes most days, not even close. But those guys, like, they just have this extra gear where it's, you know, we have this, I tend to not be I always tell every client, new client, I'm not the hardest trainer, and that's by design. I'm not the type of guy to just leave you in like, you know, where it's like Saving Private Ryan at the end of the workout. I've never been that type of person, because I do believe that with exercise, if some's good, more's not always better. And particularly when guys are playing all the time and stuff, I think if you leave a guy dead after the workout, you're actually making him worse. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that we do a couple times a summer is on the Airdyne, we have a half-mile test, and that's just a half mile as fast as you can go. And I like that because it's really hard, and you're gassed for like 5-10 minutes after, but then you can go about your day.
Yeah.
If we did a 3-mile test or a 5-mile test, that would be different. The rest of your day would be done. But it's just half mile. And I love that because we only do it a couple times this summer, but the guys go so fucking hard.
Yeah.
You know, and we have like a record thing. And I like that because I do think that I understand that kind of hardcore training mentality. I just think it's misguided to do it all the time. But I do like short, simple tests sometimes that are just like, hey, let's see what you're made of, but this isn't going to fuck up your day.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, that's a lot of trainers make that mistake because we're obsessed with it and we could push ourselves through that and then we have like 3 days to recover.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Yeah.
Like they got to go from our workout to their basketball workout. And the basketball workout's what actually matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, but we do a Friday thing, like usually 2-3 times a summer where we just go a half mile. And honestly, even if you had basketball right after, you're fine. When you do a half mile on the Airdyne, you're fine after like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But that 45 seconds where you're pushing is like very hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that VersaClimber's kind of like that. But when we go like do sand hills or like yesterday we did the Culver City steps.
Oh, that's fun.
And because it's all concentric, like it burns like crazy while you're doing it, but then you're like on the drive home and you're like, actually, I'm good. Like I could go do it again.
So funny story. I don't know. Most people probably do it. Listening haven't ever done the VersaClimber, but I used to do. We do it sometimes, but I said the Airdyne test, the half mile test on the VersaClimber. We used to do 30 seconds as far as you can go, and 60 seconds as far as you can go. And we stopped doing the 60 because I realized it's just too hard. And the person I realized it on is me. But it was right when Myers Leonard went to the Miami Heat, and the strength coach there told me that they do a test a minute as far as you can go, and anything over 300 feet is like flying on the VersaClimber. So in my head, I'm a real Uncle Rico. I always just think I'm like back when I was 20, I used to be able to deadlift whatever. Like I probably sound like such a tool, but when I train with the guys, I still train. It gives me something to train for, like shooting for their numbers and stuff. So I tried the heat conditioning test a minute as far as you can go, and it was truly like I won the battle, lost the war, because I got 343 feet, which is flying on the VersaClimber. But you know how it hits you about a minute after? When you get off, you're like, I'm fine, then it hits you. I got this searing pain right in my VMOs, right above my knee, a minute after that didn't go away for like 2 hours. And my buddy was with me, and I gave myself like an exercise-induced almost like a panic attack, but my heart rate was jacked.
Wow.
And I had to call my doctor. It was a Friday afternoon. I almost went to, I'm not an alarmist. I've done tons of hard workouts, never puked. But I was like, I might have fucked myself up on this test. And I was like, yeah, I ain't doing that with the guys anymore. Like, because if you get people that are mentally tough on a test
figure
that's
out a
too
way to
hard,
get it. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, let's not do this. So now we only do 30 seconds as far as you can go. I realized a minute was truly like, you can do damage if you go all out like that. Yeah, that's next level on the VersaClimber, especially if you're doing like the big range of motion. Like guys will get on and do like really small and like that's tolerable for a minute. Have you ever seen how we do it? Sometimes I post the guys, we bottom out. You have to hit the bottom.
Oh, you go full, yeah.
But that's the way to get the fastest times, but it's also hard.
Yeah.
But we'll do 30 seconds, but the minute I was the last one. I don't know if you're like this, but any trainer that tells you that nobody's ever been hurt training with them is probably lying, or they don't push the guys.
Yeah.
But I learn. I'm kind of like in baseball it's 3 strikes and you're out, but I'm always 2 strikes and you're out with like an exercise. I'm admittedly kind of a mom, but if I see shit go down on something, sometimes I can justify like, oh, maybe this was just like a blip. But if it happens twice, I'm like, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't care if, there's this whole new like trend on social media of these evidence-based people that I think they like kind of miss the boat on what evidence-based is sometimes. But, you know, people, you know, there's times I'll say to people, we don't do this exercise because I think it's dangerous. And they'll go, no, it's not dangerous. And I'm like, yeah, it's more dangerous than the alternatives, because I've had a couple people get hurt. And there's times when I feel, you know, I very much value what I learn, but my experiences matter. And when people online talk about how like anecdotes are the least important part of evidence, I very much disagree on that. I actually think anecdotes, when you've trained a lot of people, are, if not the most valuable, really close to the most valuable teachers. And, you know, that can be a positive or a negative thing. Sometimes you just have great results with something and you don't know why it works, but it works. And then there's times when I'll do something with someone because somebody I respect did it and a guy gets hurt and I go, man, maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
Yeah.
You know? And
that's a great point. That maybe is one of my biggest pet peeves that I see online is like, I'll talk about, okay, I've had like 30 NBA players and I've seen this trend and I believe this to be true. And then somebody will go like, yeah, but this study shows that it's not. And they pull up a study that's like 15 untrained college age males. Like if I have 50 on a highly specific population, that is actually way more powerful than the 15 untrained college age males. Even if it's peer reviewed, that means nothing.
It means nothing. And I really do. The older I get, the better I get about not engaging in internet arguments. I used to be way worse. I remember when I first started writing for T-Nation, if I ever got a negative comment, I was like trying to find this guy's address to like pull up. I'm like, dude, I'm pulling up. Like, you said that my article was bad. Like, now we have to fight. I've outgrown that a little, but I still do. If you catch me on a day where I don't have a lot of clients, and you know, and somebody, I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing. Like, honestly, half the time I post and I go about my day, and then I see what people said at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The other half of the time I post, if it's a slow day, I'm reading the comments and I'm going, fuck you guys. Like, how can you tell me that what I'm doing is so stupid? Like, you never done this. Like, you know, and there's never been a research study on 30 NBA players. There just isn't. Like, they wouldn't do that. Like, the guys wouldn't be down to do it. Like,
and you would have to isolate variables. So you would have to say, okay, you guys can't train. Let's take away your whole training program and let's just do this one exercise for 12 weeks.
Nobody's going to do it. And there's never been a study on a bunch of guys that are 6'6" and above. The gym ain't built for guys like that.
Yep.
The gym ain't. These studies aren't on people that have had obscenely high physical workload since they were 12 years old. It's like all these things change. So I think anecdotes, you know, I've noticed things with actors and things like that, like a lot of commonalities. I think people that live crazy lifestyles and travel all the time and fly all the time, like these things matter. And that these don't come into the studies. Like, you know, I've noticed all kind of things. And I really do hold my personal anecdotes as one of the highest forms of evidence. Because I'm like, you know, I've hurt people. You know, I'll be the first trainer to say I've had guys hurt their backs lifting, where then when I dug a little deeper, I'm like, okay, I think this is why. And, you know, so we're going to change it. And even if, you know, people on the internet think like, you know, because I do, the other thing about my social media that is, it's hard to convey context. Yeah. But I write my social media, the answer to almost every training thing is it depends. But I think for the average exerciser and even for pro athletes, it depends is a shitty answer. I think most people, when you train them, just want to know, if someone said to me, do you like back squat or front squat? They don't want the 2,000 word article that I used to write on my blog about the back squat versus the front squat. They want to know that I like front squat better. Yeah. And yeah, I could see back squat in certain situations, but I like front squat better generally. So I just say front squat. On the internet, that doesn't really fly, because people that don't train people and just love to like do like the online circle jerk about exercise are like, well, what about this and what about this? And I'm like, no, man, I think, and that, like, I'd say with most people, like, goblet squat's actually better than those. Like, because I've, you know, I'm not, but my context is I'm not training like high school football players or something. I'm training average adults with like below average mobility, and I try to do stuff that's going to get them in shape and not get hurt.
Right.
So I have no problem saying, like, I like this exercise, I don't like this exercise. That exercise that I said I don't like, yeah, if you press me more and I'm talking with my trainer friends, I could see applications for it. But when I'm talking to a client, I just say, I don't like this. You know,
Yeah.
if somebody says to me, should I do interval training or steady state? You got to just answer one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on the internet, you don't. You could write a whole thing about it and get into a whole debate if
Yeah.
you don't have a life. But like to a client, I would say, depending on the situation. But today I would say just, yeah, you're tired, just steady state today. Like that type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
There's nuanced answers, but I don't do my social media for the online circle jerk. I do it for the average exerciser that
Yep.
just wants to know what to do and do I think this is better than this?
Yep.
You know, that type of thing.
Yeah, so many people get caught up in those online debates. As soon as you get back to one person, it's like you're sucked into that world, and then they want to, you know, make posts, and it turns into this whole debate, and it's just so annoying. And it really holds us back, because then everything you go to post, you're like second guessing, because you're like, this would help people, but if I don't give this context, then people are going to pick fun at it, and yeah, it becomes a mess.
Yeah, my thought on that is I post talking to the people I train, and I just don't really care about
That's
the
smart.
rest. You know,
Yeah.
but I do think one of my pet peeves is the evidence-based community that poo-poos anecdotes, because I think that anecdotes from people I know are so valuable.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a lot of my trainer friends that train people all the time, like I was talking to a guy the other day, and it got me thinking, because he said he's now had 3 guys tweak their hamstring on the True Form treadmill. And I did back in the day, but I never thought about it. And I thought to myself, shit, I did too. I didn't say it was the treadmill, but there's something interesting about this. I think we might have, I'm not going to vilify the treadmill, but I now think that maybe we have to look at how people run on that thing, because I've now heard of several things. That's a very valuable anecdote
Yep.
of someone that trains people. You know, if you told me on air or off air, you know, with the basketball guys, that you've been noticing certain trends, I would take that in way higher regard for my basketball guys than I would any study about an exercise that was all done on people my size.
Yep.
That
Exactly.
You know, like I just would, because there's no studies on guys that like they don't even fit on the bench. You
Right.
know, that type of thing.
100%.
You know.
Love it. As far as like, let's talk, okay, you know, we're talking trainer talk. How about for these kids, you know, high school basketball player starting where probably all of us started, hey, I want to get big, I want to be more physical. Like, what's some basic tips for these guys? You know, they don't want to lose athleticism, but they want to get stronger and more physical on the court. Where do you start with that question?
Well, that's an interesting one, because my first 5 or 6 years of lifting, I made myself way less athletic. And I was doing, you ever heard of dog crap training, DC training?
No.
It's like 1 set to failure, like this rest pause thing. But I got really into my first 5 or 6 years of training. I wasn't lifting myself to improve my athleticism. I was just lifting to lift. And I am somebody that a lot of what I say with my clients is do as I say, not as I do, because I'm like a closet meathead. And I love training to failure. That's the other thing. Like, I like those sets where after rep 10, you're probably done, but then you just figure out a way to get 5 more.
Yeah.
But I actually think those last 5 are probably what make you less athletic, if that makes sense. So I was doing a lot of 20 rep squats and high rep leg press and stuff. And I actually like tanked my vertical jump and all that type of stuff. And then, you know, when I say tanked, it's like it's easy to get it back, like if you train the right way.
Yeah.
You know? But I think a lot of stuff. I do think that for people that are trying to improve their athleticism, doing like training deep to failure is usually not a good thing, particularly on lower body.
I agree.
I think that a lot of people do too many reps. I think that a good general guideline, if you're trying to like not get slow, is to you know, kind of, this is all, you know, again, trainers are probably going to be like this, there's a lot of like nuances to this, but I think if you lift in like the 5 to 8 rep range as opposed to like way higher reps on lower body, that's probably a better idea.
I agree.
I think stopping a little short of failure. I think realizing that your sport's always going to be more important than the gym, so don't lift so hard that it impacts the rest of your day. I think realizing that the muscles you can't see in the mirror tend to be the ones that make you a better athlete. So your glutes, your hamstrings, your back are oftentimes, well, that's, again, like, I think quads are very important to an athlete and stuff, but I think that kids tend to do, chest and buys, back and tries, that type of thing, and then half-ass legs. And I think, I've always said to athletes, if you're going to suck at one exercise, make it the bench press.
Yeah.
And I think that in general, compound movements tend to give you more bang for your buck than isolation. And then, as you get to be more advanced, isolation can have its place. A lot of injuries require isolation and stuff. But if we're talking to a young kid just trying to get to be a better athlete, I would actually say for a young kid trying to be a better athlete, if you got really good at rear foot elevated split squat, trap bar deadlift, chin-ups, and some sort of leg curl, you'd be doing really well for yourself. I think that's like a pretty balanced.
Yeah.
I like a mix of bilateral and unilateral strength. I think a lot of guys don't do enough stuff for their hamstrings. So I think that the chin-up is a really good measure of relative upper body strength in a sport like basketball where you don't have to be that big. I think a chin-up is a good barometer for young guys.
Yeah.
So I think those, if you got good at nothing else but those four, you'd be doing pretty well for yourself.
I like that. Do you trend towards 3 full body days, or do you go splits? You go lower, upper?
Well, who are we talking about? Like what kind of population?
Let's say like a high school basketball player who just wants to get big but still be athletic.
Well, it depends. The guys that don't live for the gym, we tend to do full body workouts because I think if you're lifting 2 or 3 days a week, full body is kind of my go-to. People that love the gym and go 4 or 5 days a week, then we start doing I always do lower upper instead of upper lower because I feel like if you're gonna, that way if you skip a day it's upper. So we tend to do, some guys will do lower upper. I don't really do body part splits for like as far as like chest day, back day type of thing, but we'll do for just guys just trying to get big. I used to do push pull legs and thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I do full body workouts with my clients, and a big reason for that, there's a lot of stuff that trainers kind of know intuitively but don't talk about. It's funny to me, like when I read a trainer's articles and they talk about these like elaborate programs, I'm always thinking, are all their clients different than mine in that they come on like a set schedule all the time? Because like none of mine do.
Yeah.
So I've always had logistics rule everything. And a lot of my clients, the actors and stuff, I don't even know the next day they're coming. Like we go day to day.
Yeah.
So there's no sense in, it sounds bad. It makes me sound like a bad trainer, but a lot of times I don't have like a written program because I don't know when they're coming. So again, Captain Obvious, you just got to do the best you can.
Yeah.
But I think when you don't know when people have irregular schedules, I just think logistically speaking, full body works best because, if they don't come for a while, they hit everything kind of thing,
Yeah, that's why I got away from doing deload. Like I used to plan out like deloads. Let's take this week light, but then it's like everybody's going to have a natural deload built in when they go on vacation.
Yeah, they go on vacation, they get sick, their kid, they have kids, whatever. Yeah, we don't really deload either. Now, I will deload the people that come consistently if they're training for a long time. Sometimes I say, just take this week off, like, that type of thing. And there's all kind of people in the training, under the training realm. If you think, there's some people that you need to dial them back because they're the type of people that would run through a wall if you told them to. And then you have people that need to be pushed. And so there's no blanket answer for that type of stuff. The guys that when people talk about overtraining, that's a talk that I realize is a theoretical talk, because the dudes that train hard enough to need to worry about overtraining aren't going to stop because of something they read. And the people that will listen to that stuff are the ones that don't train very hard and are like, oh, I'm overtrained. I'm like, you ain't overtrained.
Yeah.
So
there's probably like 5% of the population, probably less, that can actually get overtrained.
Yeah, and they don't care about what some like nerdy trainer has to say about it.
Yeah. Or I guess you could be overtrained, not from doing too much, but too much too soon. Like these kids that aren't in the gym, they get hyped up on pre-workout and then just go crush for 2 hours. Like, yeah, you are overtrained, but it's not because you're doing too much. It's just you did too much too soon.
One thing that I'm learning more and more, moving to LA and training a lot of people that have just crazy travel schedules and stuff, I'm learning more, because I'd always read it, but I think sometimes I'm somebody that has to experience things to really see the value in it. Like I learn from reading, but I learn more from my experiences and stuff. But people that have crazy life schedules, they all, people say stress is stress. It doesn't matter if it's physical stress from exercising or the stress of a breakup or the stress of whatever. Like, stress is stress. And I think that people that live a really crazy life as far as traveling, staying up late and stuff, you actually can get overtrained on very little training, because I think they're kind of almost at their like stress threshold without even exercising.
Yep.
So I do think I've actually become... the longer I train clients, the easier I become as a trainer, because I've realized that, our mantra, I give every new client the same spiel. I'll tell you right now. But I tell them, after we do our intake, I start every client with 3 questions. And it's your previous training history, your injury history, and your goals. And the goals and injury history are the 2 most important to me to develop a program. Past training history just gives me an idea of what they like, where they're at. Because I think you have to meet new people where they're at. If you come in guns a-blazing with somebody that hasn't worked out much, they're going to hate it. And I think if you go too easy on someone that is hardcore, they're not going to like it. So the past training history just gives me a little insight into their mentality and what they've done and stuff. But really, all I care about is injury history and goals when I get a new client. And that pays no mind to their job. It doesn't matter if they're an athlete, an entertainer, a accountant. I think if you know those 2 things, you can do a pretty good job getting a program going. We do a little bit of a movement screen, which is sort of a spin off the functional movement screen. It's like the FMS with a couple other things I do. We don't have to get into all of it. And then we train. But in the beginning spiel, I tell them all, I'm not the hardest trainer. That's by design. I'd rather you leave today feeling like I was too easy rather than too hard. I could smoke you today, but there's no point. And our mantra is it should be 7 out of 10 hard.
Yeah.
So, and that applies to each set, and that applies to the overall workout. So
I like that.
I want you leaving feeling every single set like you could have done a little more. Now, the caveat to that, so this is where social media can be misleading, because they talk about social media being a highlight reel, and I think it is to a degree. It kind of is with me, at least. Like, I'm not posting my athletes just doing like a run-of-the-mill set. I'm posting their top set. So every once in a while, we'll go like to 9 out of 10 hard, or sometimes to failure, but usually it's 7 out of 10 hard. So the level you see people push in my videos, we typically train a little below that. And then like kind of like every once in a while we push a little harder. But I always tell guys, and women, it doesn't matter if it's athletes, non-athletes, the workout should feel 7 out of 10 hard, as far as like when you get in your car, you're fine to go about your day. And each set should be 7 out of 10 hard. Because I think that last little push, there's very little, unless you're trying to just train for like just pure muscle mass or pure strength. I think like that last little strain is where injuries happen, where you get whatever. And so we tend to, that's the whole spiel. It's like think 7 out of 10, and that's,
I like that.
That's kind
I
of
love a good old fashioned RPE scale.
Yeah.
Not enough people take advantage of that.
And that's where we live. And then some days, if they're smoked, it could be 5 out of 10 on that day. And then every once in a while we test. And I actually test more with people that I can just tell don't push themselves. because everybody's 7 out of 10 is different. That's the interesting part about that. You know, some people that have that military mindset, their 7 out of 10 is still pretty fucking hard. Some people, they're 7 out of 10. As somebody who's trained hard, I'm like, dude, you had like 15 reps in the tank and you stopped. So the people that don't push themselves, I'll encourage them to push a little harder, and we'll test more often just to, like if I know, for example, because I'm a person, I don't switch up the exercises too often. So say we're doing a rear foot elevated split squat and they're doing 50-pound dumbbells in each hand, but I know they could do more. We'll test and then kind of be like, cat's out of the bag, dude. I saw you do 75. So you're fucked. Like now we, you know, that type of thing. But people that tend to push themselves too hard, I tell them stay in that 7 out of 10. I know you could do more, but there's no point.
Yep. I love it. Yes, that's also a cheat code for group classes where you can't always switch the weight as much. You just like, I tell people, okay, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, and then one guy will get 6 reps, one guy will get 20, but you're still getting your stimulating reps. Like you're all getting to the same point. And now what we know, especially when it comes to hypertrophy, like back when we're talking about our blog days, it was still like these certain rep ranges. And now it's like, hey, if you get 5 stimulating reps, you're good. Whether that's a 5 rep max or 15, 20, it really doesn't matter. So that's for anybody out there who runs group classes. That's a cheat code because it's really hard to always constantly switch the weight.
Well, I like that stuff too because so even under the umbrella of basketball players, I'm sure you get this all the time, but if you don't, whatever. I like this stuff because we're talking to the listeners, but I'm just talking shop with you. But one thing that I've noticed training more NBA guys, when people ask me, what do you do for basketball guys? I've realized that it's so like under the umbrella of basketball, the guys it's very different what they do. Because, you know, this summer, for example, I have a guy that's 37 and a guy that's 21. That's like a totally different situation, you know? And I actually have one guy that's 21, one guy that's 22. The guy that's 21 is pretty big. The guy that's 22 is skinny. And then you have people that are all banged up from years of playing, 16 extra years on you. That changes your training program. So if you said to me, what do you do with basketball guys? I'd be like, that's a tough answer. In the sense of like, you know, the other thing that I don't think people always realize is I think people when they think like, because you probably train some true like superstar players and then some like middle of the road guys and some probably younger guys. The superstars aren't always gym superstars, and that's the other thing you have to realize. So that's why those 3 questions that I have, goals, injury history, matters so much because I remember when I first started training, thinking I used to train hockey and football, but I trained a couple really high-level NHL players. Some of them were good in the gym, some of them weren't. And same in basketball and in anything. And you kind of have to meet people where they're at and not have it in your head, this guy's a basketball superstar, but in the gym, he might not be. And also, those superstars have a lot of mileage on their body. So some of those guys actually, it's dialed back from some of the younger guys. You know?
Some of those guys, the younger guys, don't get minutes throughout the season, so they're actually super fresh year round.
Exactly.
They're ready to train hard. Okay, speed round. So you can give context, but not a lot of context. It's mostly quick. This is like Instagram. This is where people fire their shots because you don't give enough context. Okay.
I got thick skin.
Rear foot elevated or back squat? Is it always rear foot elevated, or is there a time for back squat for you?
We haven't done it for 10 years. I would say high school football, if you have to do it in college. Besides that, no. Rear foot elevated or front squat? Rear foot elevated.
Is that mostly like just stress on the spine, or you just like single leg?
I think I love goblet squats. I love light front squats. I think that the rear foot elevated split squat is one of the best ways to build knee dominant lower body strength without beating up your body too much.
Okay. do you obsess over depth as far as any squat, whether it's rear foot elevated front squat? Are you concerned with them getting all the way to the floor, or?
Actually, this might, because we should talk off air, because I'm actually interested, because I've heard some of your thoughts, but I tend to be a range of motion person, yes. I tend to tell guys, I'd rather you do less weight and go all the way down.
Yeah.
But I don't push it. So what that means is I'm not pushing guys to squat through butt wink and stuff. I'm not pushing guys to do rear foot elevated split squats to the ground if they feel their hip pinch. But if they're doing it because they're lazy, then I have them go all the way to the floor.
Yeah. So if they have the range, they're pain-free, use it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Nutrition stuff. Whole milk or almond milk?
Well, I can't eat nuts. So whole milk.
Straight whole milk.
But I tend to be, I'm from New England, dude. The food situation in LA, the first time my mom visited me, we went to eat twice. Third time she goes, dude, can we go eat somewhere where it's not just weeds and seeds? Like I come like where I'm from, like a lot of like the healthy substitutes aren't really, I haven't come around to it yet. But I think I like whole milk.
Okay. I do too, by the way.
Yeah.
People like take that out because of the certain negatives, and then they add in almond milk, and then almond milk is basically like water with like one almond sprinkled in. It's like there's no nutrition.
Almond milk makes no sense to me.
It doesn't. If you're going to remove milk because you don't like the hormones or whatever the thing is that you're removing it for, you got to add in like a bunch of other stuff to then get that calcium and the protein.
My girlfriend doesn't do dairy, so we have like, I tried oat milk. That tastes like shit. I'd rather drink like anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Another nutrition question. If you had to go carnivore diet or vegan diet, which one would you go?
Ooh, dude, I might just call it a day at that
just
point.
End it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an extreme person with anything. So I would say that just might be a wrap for me. I'd probably go carnivore because I've only ever gone to a vegan place to eat like twice. And one time I left and went right to get a burger. I was like, all I had was sides. Like the vegan would be tough for me. I've trained a fair amount of vegans and some athletes that are vegans. If you do it for moral reasons, I get it. If you do it for performance reasons, I think you're watching the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Okay. Would you rather trap bar deadlift or barbell deadlift?
Trap bar.
All day, every day?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if I'm gonna do, if people don't have a trap bar, we do RDLs. Like to the knee, like just below the knee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one. It's got to be a good one. Let me think of a good one. Ooh.
Actually, I would add to that. I think that if the whole internet thing, if you could only do one exercise, for me, that would be trap bar. I think that that checks the most boxes for me. Again, context. But I think if you got good at trap bar deadlifts, you'd be, on a good path.
It's also versatile. Like you could do a hip dominant, like more of an RDL with a hex bar, or you can do a knee dominant, and that's basically a squat.
This again, there's context to this, but I think if I like it because it's safer, but I also think if you told someone, if you put a $100 bill on the ceiling and told someone to jump, that position they would get in is the bottom of a trap bar deadlift.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I like that.
Yep.
I think there's some to that.
Yep. Okay, last one. Do you personally do any plyometrics, or do you incorporate any plyometrics with your clients, or are you kind of like, let me do the weights and then take care of that?
No, we do. That's one that we do a lot of plyos in low level plyos and then more jumping stuff. The lower level plyos I think are very, very valuable, and that's one thing where social media is a highlight reel. I just don't post a lot of that stuff because I'm like, I want the guys to look like I want to, like, if I'm posting them, I want them to be like lifting heavy weight. Yeah. But there's a lot of value. I've had people say, "Do you guys warm up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course we warm up. We do plyos. We do a lot of." We start every workout with lateral band walks. I think it takes a total of 3 minutes, but I think it's a valuable 3 minutes. That's stuff that we do every single workout ever. but we don't like post it.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, my man, I'm going to be respectful of your time and let you go. Appreciate you being on. It's always good to talk shop. Like I partially just do this for me so I could just pick people's brain, but it's cool that there's thousands of people listening to it as well.
Yeah, but I appreciate you having me because I will say I don't have too many trainer friends in LA, but I've always really loved your social media. I think
appreciate it.
You do a really good job of you can tell you're a really smart guy that puts thought into it, but I think a lot of really smart people are bad teachers.
Yeah.
And I think that you're a good teacher.
I appreciate that, my man.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do it again sometime, and we need to get a training session in too.
Dude, I'm down.
Yeah, I'm probably not as strong as you, but...
Dude, I can't jump as high, so...
There we go. We'll help each other.
Yeah.